Hello, YouTube. I've had my truck for 3 years now. It's a Ford F-150 2022 model XLT PowerBoost. Now, at the 1-year mark and at the 2-year mark, I put together a video saying, this is my review. Would I buy this again? Here's the things that I like about it. Here's the things I didn't like about it. And so I've gotten a lot of comments lately from viewers that have said, hey, it's year 3. Where's your video? So in today's video, I'm going to do something a little bit different because, quite honestly, I don't really have anything new to add that I didn't already put in years 1 and years 2 of the owner experience. It's been exactly the same in year 3. So what I'm going to do in this video is cover the top 5 questions that I get from people all the time that are either thinking about buying a PowerBoost or have just bought one and don't quite know what to do with it or don't quite know how to use it. So here we go. Here's the top 5 questions that I get about the Ford F-150 PowerBoost.
Probably the biggest question that I get over and over again is just about the reliability of this PowerBoost, with good reason, because it's certainly a technical tour de force, and I think that makes people nervous, especially traditional truck people that are used to V8s. So 3 years and 36,000 miles later, I've had one check engine light. That's the only issue that I've really had. I changed out the main 12-volt battery at 2 years as the OEM battery was getting weak. I started seeing more of the errors starting to show up, which indicated that the truck was taking care of things for a weak battery. It was accommodating a weaker battery. This is relatively common to have the OEM battery experience early failure. These motorcraft batteries, especially the ones that are built since 2020, have quite honestly been very disappointing. So a lot of people that have gone the warranty route and got replacements from Ford have got the same issue like a year later. So I replaced mine before failure and sought out the best brand that I could find. I don't like to do the same job over and over and over again. I don't like to waste time at the dealer, wasting time trying to fight for a warranty. And for all the reasons that I went over in my video, which described the battery replacement process. The most expensive maintenance item that I've paid for was a transmission fluid and filter replacement, about $700 by the dealer, and I did this at $30K. You know, quite honestly, the reason why I did that was because of all these negative experiences people were talking about with their transmission, and I figured, well, if this is that sensitive to it, I'm going to take care of it early. The mechanic that I talked to agreed that I was early during everything being in good condition. The fluid was still red, and please don't bring it back until you hit 90,000. Otherwise, it's a waste of money. So I feel good about that I'm set for quite a while. I've had several recalls done by my dealer. They come to me with a mobile van, they take care of it. I tip them $20. It's a huge convenience. I love that Ford is able to do this. I've done videos on oil analysis and how they detected oil dilution. So my 5W30 is something less than that after a few thousand miles. And so what I'm doing is I'm changing it out no more than 45,000. I've also changed out the front and rear diff and transfer case fluids at $30K. I'm good to go for a while. This truck has been super reliable for me. Sure, you're going to hear from others that have had bad experiences with hundreds of thousands of these units sold. So you're going to hear some people that have gotten a turkey, and I feel bad for them. But quite honestly, you never hear from the people that have a good experience. So you will find whatever you want to hear with this many units that are out there on the streets. So I think you improve your odds and create your own luck when you get in front of maintenance tasks, and in general, treat the truck with respect. So overall, it's been a very reliable platform for me, as it should be for the price. Here's the number 2 question, and these two are related. What kind of mileage can you get, and how far can you drive on that EV battery? Well, the best mileage that you're going to get is when you're driving about 45 to 50 miles an hour on back roads, without a whole lot of traffic lights, when you can just go on and on and on without slowing down or stopping. This is going to give you maybe 27 to 28 miles a gallon. You might be able to even do better than this depending on how soft you are with the right foot. Be aware that the winter blend will cost mileage, and a cold discharge battery is going to need energy to bring it up to temp and a full charge. So I never get as good mileage in the winter time as I do during this summer. Summer's always going to give you better numbers for several reasons. Here's some typical numbers that I've taken screenshots when I parked. So in this case, like 25 miles a gallon over a 15-mile route, or in this case, a 32.7 mile route, 26.4 miles a gallon. Go easy with the right foot. Big numbers are easy with the PowerBoost if you have the right type of driving conditions. I can generally do about 25 miles a gallon on extended highway trips, as long as there's not too many hills, as long as I'm not climbing too many of these hills. Wind resistance increases with the square of the speed, so watch your speed. Going 80 miles an hour is not going to give you the good numbers. Around town and on short drives, I probably get about 19 miles a gallon with short trips, because the truck really doesn't even get warmed up by the time I'm at my destination at Home Depot or whatever. My overall mileage sits around 22 measured. So this is based on me filling up and how much aggregate mileage that I get. I used to use, when I first got this truck, I was dedicated to setting it to eco mode. Every time I would take off, I'd set it to eco mode because I was miles per gallon obsessed like everybody else is that buys one of these. So since then, after a year or so, I just leave it on normal because I like to feel better. That torque is missing from eco mode. I don't sense that I'm giving up any mileage efficiency by doing so. Really, it feels better and I can get about the same mileage. So driving on the battery alone, just the EV part, I can drive around a parking lot with a charged battery, but probably not a whole lot more than that before you're going to find the engine kicking in. It is not a plug-in hybrid. Where the battery drive really shines is when you're going slightly downhill and you start easy off the line. You can go for quite a ways in this type of mode. I've gone for about a mile without having the engine turn on. Ironically, if you're going down a large hill on the highway, at some point the internal combustion engine will come on. And I don't know the full logic behind this. If you do understand exactly how Ford programmed this, please leave us a comment below and explain to us exactly what's going on here. But I believe it's because the battery's fully charged, and I verified this through my OBD Link Plus, and the drivetrain needs to soak excess energy that cannot go into the battery. Remember, this is just a small high voltage battery for a boost. It is not a plug-in hybrid. If Ford placed a big enough battery to allow 20 miles of range just on EV, we'd have zero cargo capacity. We'd have basically a 2,000-pound battery. Question number 3 that I get all the time is the ProPower Onboard worth it? Now, for those of you that don't know, ProPower Onboard is the built-in integrated generator that is part of the PowerBoost drivetrain. So you're either going to get a 2.4 kilowatt single phase system, or you're going to get the full 7.2 kilowatt dual phase system, which can provide 220 volts at 7,200 watts total. So is it worth it? After 2 years, I could count the number of times that I'd fired up ProPower Onboard on one hand, and it generally wasn't because of a need or anything like that. It was more of curiosity. And then Hurricane Helene hit in September 2024. The huge trees in this area were not used to hurricane force winds, and many roads were cut off. It was great to have four-wheel drive to get around some obstacles and be able to tow things. My ProPower Onboard got a workout. We were without power for about a week, and it was able to run my house. So yeah, I'd say that it was worth it. If you're happier with a separate generator, then I won't judge. All I can communicate to you based on your questions is that it really worked well for me during a time of need. Question number 4, what are the must-have features from the factory? So whether you're buying this truck off a lot or whether you're doing a special order, there's so many different options that you can potentially buy. And a lot of times, unless you've owned these trucks before, you don't know what to get until you spend some time with these. So a lot of questions coming in online from people saying, what are the must-have features from the factory? Well, to me, if you're going to have a Super Crew, and especially if you've got a longer bed, You got to have the 360 cameras. And I realize that sometimes these are difficult to get because during my model year, they stopped building them. They stopped putting them out there, and they're incredibly difficult to add after the fact. But if you can, I would get, especially if you have a longer bed or if you have a Super Crew with a longer turning radius, get those 360 cameras. My truck is the 157-inch chassis, wide turning radius, 7-point turns, everything like that. It can be difficult to park in retail lots. The cameras really come in handy. Let's talk about the Pro Power Onboard. I originally ordered the 2.4 kilowatt Pro Power Onboard. Thankfully, I came to my senses after a power outage, and I upgraded to the 7.2 kilowatt Pro Power on before the build was assigned. So before the build was locked in, I was able to change the order, luckily. And I would say no one regrets ordering the 7.2 kilowatt Pro Power Onboard. So if you have the means, go ahead and do it. I like the tailgate work surface. It's cool, looks neat, but I can't say that I've really measured any lumber on the built-in scale. It's just a nice looking finish on the tailgate. Old guys like me need the step and the stripper pole built into the tailgate so I can get into the bed. If I have to go grab something from the front of the bed or I have to get into there, but I'd be just as happy with a corner bumper step like GMC offers. Somehow I got lucky enough to figure out what I needed during the ordering process. Even though I hadn't owned a truck like this before, everything that I ordered as an option, I am using to this day. So wouldn't it be great having a digital dash and leather seats and LED lights like King Ranch or the Lariat? Sure. But I stayed within my budget and I'm really happy with my build. And question number 5 that I get from potential owners are, what are the must-have mods that you installed? I have published several videos installing and reviewing the modifications that I've done to this truck. I did a mini top 12 mods update on my 2-year owner review as well, if you're looking for information on these. So let's go over the top 10 that I feel are there today. Number 1, I've got to have a bed liner. Don't use the spray-in or Line-X method. I mean, it looks cool, but if you actually have to get in the truck, you're going to lose your knees. So I love the bed liner, the dual liner, because it's got a nice rubber mat and plastic hard shell on the side. It's really the way to go. I have a trifold bed cover. There's probably much better solutions than this. This one was cheap and it works really well for me, and I would probably replace it with something similar if and when this thing dies down the road. LED signal lighting. I hate halogen signal lighting. I think it's soft and it's ineffective. I've always been a big proponent of LED signal lighting. I've got a lot of videos showing how I've adopted this solution for the truck and how I got past the issue of hyper flashing. Next is the OBD Link MX Plus. This is the gateway device to adding forescan capabilities to be able to modify the software in your truck, as well as be able to show through OBD Fusion, as well as other OBD Link products, to be able to build a dashboard for the important metrics of your engine. The Bluetooth battery monitor is important, especially if you have an OEM battery and you suspect that it's not holding up very well. It's great to have a battery monitor to prove it to you what's actually happening to your battery. The oil separator catch can, people are somewhat polarized on this. Some people feel you don't need one, especially if you have port injection. Others, like me, look at what's in the catch can after a month and say, I don't want that in my intake. So I think it's a useful mod. It's effective, it's simple. I think where dash cam is necessary in today's driving environment, you just got to have one these days. A cat protector, which functions also as a skid plate. Are your cats safe where you live? If you just have the felt diaper, the answer is no. The Fumoto valve is almost necessary if you have a cat protector. Otherwise, it just makes oil changes a lot faster. And then finally, I got a set of Tux Mat floor mats, and they still look great. They're still phenomenal, and they really dress up the interior of the truck. You'll notice that I haven't included any mods for leveling or bigger tires. Guys, I just don't care about the looks and the vanity of that, because that's really functionally what you're talking about. I could see some value in upgrading the suspension with improved shocks and a rear sway bar. We'll see if that gets added for year 4.
Hey everybody, if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see in the next video.